It began like the opening scene of a crime show, a sound that could have come straight from a nightmare. Someone trying to escape. A voice rising in terror until the screams grew louder and more desperate. The small town of Alton in Illinois seemed silent under the dim streetlights. Just after midnight, a man could be seen on camera, walking down a quiet street, carrying a white laundry basket in his arms. He moved calmly, stepping behind a smoke shop, and vanished into the dark alley. No one knew what was hidden inside that basket. The next morning, a construction worker arrived for his shift as usual. He was clearing debris into a red dumpster parked by the street when something caught his eye. Mixed among scraps of drywall and broken wood, he saw clothes scattered everywhere and a few pairs of shoes. He noticed one pair of red slippers stained with what looked like blood. He froze, realizing something was very wrong. Later that afternoon, a mother named Heidi Knoll drove to her daughter's apartment. She had not heard from her daughter, Lisa Dodd, since the previous night. Lisa was 22 years old and 8 months pregnant. Heidi felt a deep sense of unease when her calls went unanswered. When she arrived, she let herself inside the apartment. The door was unlocked. Within minutes, she ran back outside, trembling. The neighbors who gathered nearby could read the horror in her eyes. Moments later, her shaking voice came through on a chilling emergency call. She told the dispatcher that her daughter had been killed. Her voice broke as she said that her daughter's head was gone. Police rushed to the apartment complex. They found Heidi sitting on the front steps, unable to speak. The officers entered the building and climbed the narrow staircase to the second floor. They knew they were about to witness something they would never forget. Inside the small bedroom they found Lisa. Her body lay still on the bed. Her head appeared wrapped in a towel. But when they looked closer, they realized it was gone entirely. The sight was beyond comprehension. The weapon was missing, and her head was nowhere to be found. The officers searched every corner, but the apartment was silent. There were no signs of forced entry. Only the brutal aftermath of something unthinkable. Neighbors soon gathered outside the street, once quiet, now filled with disbelief and fear. A young mother and her unborn child had both lost their lives that day. The entire community was shaken to its core. For Heidi, the pain was beyond words. She had lost her only daughter, and the grandchild she had been waiting to hold. She could barely comprehend what had happened, or why, to understand how this tragedy unfolded. Investigators would need to go back in time to the hours before Lisa's death to uncover what led to one of the most disturbing crimes the town had ever seen. Lisa Dodd lived in Alton, Illinois, a small city just across the river from St. Louis. It was not the safest place to live, but it was home to her. She had grown up there surrounded by friends and family who loved her deeply. Lisa was born on a warm August day in 1999. She was known for her bright smile and her gentle heart. As a child, she had a passion for helping others, especially animals. For her 10th birthday, instead of asking for presents, she organized a small fundraiser for the local animal shelter. She always wanted to make the world a little better in any way she could. She graduated from Jersey Community High School in 2017 and soon started working at Dairy Queen. Her co-workers remembered her as kind, cheerful, and hardworking. She was saving money for school. She dreamed of joining the medical field, just like her mother. By the summer of 2022, Lisa was 8 months pregnant. The baby was a girl, and her family affectionately called her Baby Bean. They had already planned the baby shower and filled the apartment with small gifts and tiny clothes. The future seemed full of hope. But there was one part of Lisa's life that cast a dark shadow over everything. Her relationship with DeAndre Holloway. DeAndre was the same age as Lisa. He had grown up in Illinois too, but his life had been filled with chaos and instability. He struggled with substance use and had a history of anger issues. Friends described him as someone who could be charming one moment and terrifying the next. Lisa and DeAndre had been together on and off for nearly 2 years. Their relationship was volatile, full of arguments and breakups. There were times when they were homeless, living in a tent near a lake. After losing their jobs, Lisa's boss remembered her showing up to work with bruises on her face and arms. At first, she made excuses blaming her dog or accidents. But eventually, the truth came out. DeAndre had been hurting her. One day her boss even witnessed it happen. Security cameras showed DeAndre hitting Lisa while they sat in a car outside the restaurant. She returned to work afterward, her face red and swollen, but refused to call the police. She always believed things would get better in July of 2021. Lisa was hospitalized after DeAndre broke her nose and left her with black eyes. She tried to leave several times and even told her boss that her boyfriend had threatened to harm her and her family, but she kept going, back. Each time she hoped it would be different. In May of the following year, Lisa met DeAndre's half-sister, PJ. They talked about the pregnancy, and DeAndre told everyone the baby was his. But by then, his behavior was growing more unstable. He had started sending strange messages to friends, writing about how he could no longer control his emotions, and how everything felt like it was falling apart. He said he did not know how to let out his anger without snapping or crying. His words read like a warning, a sign that he was nearing a breaking point. By early June, his family could not find him. He had disappeared for a few days, and Lisa became worried. She reached out to his relatives and even contacted her landlord, asking to check the security cameras to see if he had left the apartment DeAndre had gone out with his uncle, but never came back that night. Lisa texted her mother that she thought he had left her. She said he took some of his clothes, and she could not tell if he was coming back. Her mother tried to comfort her, telling her that maybe this was a blessing in disguise, that at least he was gone without violence. But Lisa was heartbroken. She said she could not see it that way. That night she admitted something painful. She told her mother that she had hurt herself by cutting her leg with a razor because she felt she could never get things right. Her mother urged her to rest and to focus on her baby, hoping the storm would pass. But it was only the calm before something far worse. In the early hours of June 8th, Lisa drove aimlessly through the quiet streets, unable to sleep. Her mind was heavy with worry. The next morning, she texted her mom again. DeAndre still had not come home. She washed her clothes for work and tried to go about her day pretending life was normal, but deep down she felt something terrible was coming. Later that evening, she finally received a message from DeAndre's uncle saying he was bringing him back home. She texted her mother that everything was fine, and around 9:11 that night, cameras showed Lisa and DeAndre arriving back at their apartment. It would be the last time anyone ever saw her alive. The night was calm across the quiet neighborhood when Lisa and DeAndre returned home. The clock read a little after 9, and the street was still. The apartment lights flickered upstairs while neighbors settled in for the night. None of them knew. They were about to witness something that would haunt them forever. Downstairs, one neighbor noticed the sound first. It was faint at first, like muffled voices through the walls. They had argued before, and the neighbors were used to hearing them fight. But this time the tone was different. It sounded like pain, a sharp sound followed by gasps and a thud. The neighbor hesitated, listening closely. The apartment floor began to shake as if something heavy was being slammed again and again. Then came the screams, not words, just pure terror echoing through the night. The neighbor later described it as a sound that reminded them of chopping wood, a slow, steady rhythm, each hit followed by silence, then another louder than the one before. It went on. For several seconds, then everything stopped. The noise, the shaking, the screaming, all gone. Afraid to look, they stayed inside and waited. Soon they heard footsteps. Someone walked out onto the porch, stayed there for a moment, then went back inside. They could not see who it was, The lights upstairs turned on, then off again, flickering for several minutes. Then silence returned. One of the neighbors texted the landlord saying they had heard screams and thuds and were worried. The landlord tried to contact Lisa, but she did not respond. They agreed to call the police if the noise started again, but it never did, because by then it was already too late. Around midnight, security cameras outside captured DeAndre leaving the apartment he was carrying, a white laundry basket. He walked calmly across the parking lot toward a nearby smoke shop. Behind the building was a large dumpster. Moments later, the camera showed him tossing the basket inside along with clothes. He then disappeared into the darkness. No one knew it then, but that basket contained Lisa's head. 2 hours later, Lisa's car vanished from the parking lot. DeAndre had taken it and driven to his mother's home. His family said he arrived around 2:30 in the morning, banging on the door, restless and anxious. His sister PJ said he looked nervous, pacing back and forth. When she saw him later that morning, he was in the bathroom cutting off his hair. She asked why he was doing it, and he said he wanted a fresh start. But she could tell he was scared. DeAndre had worn dreadlocks for years and had always been proud of them. Cutting them off meant something more than change. It was an attempt to erase what he had done. After showering, he asked his mother for a change of clothes. She gave him gray sweatpants and a shirt. He took the clothes he had been wearing outside, placed them near the trash, and later threw them away. His grandmother noticed other strange things too. DeAndre handed her Lisa's identification card, her debit card, and 2 sets of keys. When she asked why he had them, he gave no real answer. He just stared into space like he was somewhere else. He left later that day, saying he was going to cut grass, but no one believed him. He walked away on foot, leaving, behind his girlfriend's car parked on the street with a handwritten sign that said, "For sale." By then, police were already piecing things together. The CCTV footage, the blood-stained slippers, the missing head. Everything pointed to DeAndre. When officers returned to the apartment, they found evidence of a violent struggle. There were bloodstains and signs that Lisa had tried to defend herself. Her final moments had been filled with terror. As investigators traced DeAndre's movements, they found more clues. At his mother's house inside the trash bin, they discovered the clothes he had worn the night before, and his freshly cut dreadlocks wrapped in toilet paper. But DeAndre himself was nowhere to be found. The following day, just before 2 in the morning, a police call came in from a nearby town. He had been picked up after acting erratically. Officers arrested him for possession of cannabis, but they had no idea they had just captured a murderer. At the station, he refused to cooperate. He paced around the room, arguing with officers, demanding to walk around, even though his hands were cuffed. He laughed, shouted, and banged his head against the wall, as if trying to escape his own mind. When detectives from Alton arrived, they immediately recognized him as the suspect. They took samples for DNA and fingerprints and questioned him about Lisa's death. But DeAndre said nothing. He would not even give his name. Hours later, he finally asked for a lawyer, and the interview ended, days after his arrest. DeAndre was charged with multiple counts of murder, including the death of Lisa's unborn child. His bail was set at $2 million. The town of Alton could barely process what had happened. The police chief called the case one of the most horrific crimes he had ever seen. News of Lisa's murder spread quickly across Illinois. Reporters filled the streets of Alton, while neighbors left flowers and candles outside the small apartment building. The town that once felt safe now carried a heavy silence. DeAndre's family was devastated too. His stepfather later spoke publicly, saying, "They never imagined something like this could happen." He called it an act of evil and said the family had tried for years to get him help, but no one listened. They had been told that, unless he committed a crime, there was nothing they could do. He spoke softly into the camera, saying that the system had failed. Both Lisa and DeAndre, he said their son was not a monster, but a broken person with deep mental struggles. He admitted that what DeAndre had done was monstrous, but insisted that there was still a human being beneath all that darkness. It was a tragic situation. He said one that showed how mental illness can destroy lives if left untreated. Inside the jail, DeAndre's behavior grew worse. He refused to leave his cell, threatened the guards and shouted violent words, telling them he would cut off their heads. When he was brought to court for the first time, he refused to appear. He was later declared unfit to stand trial and was sent to a state hospital for treatment until he regained mental stability. Months passed. The case moved slowly while Lisa's family waited for justice. They spoke about her kindness, her laughter, and her excitement about becoming a mother. They visited her grave, often bringing baby toys and letters that would never be read. By early 2024, DeAndre finally entered a guilty plea. He admitted to killing Lisa Dodd and her unborn child. In January 2025, judge sentenced him to 60 years in prison, 30 years for murder, 20 for the homicide of the unborn baby, and 10 for hiding the body. He would have to serve more than 50 years before he could ever walk free again. The courtroom was quiet. As the sentence was read, Heidi sat in the front row holding a framed photo of Lisa. In the picture, Lisa smiled with her hand resting on her stomach, a mother waiting for her baby to arrive. That dream would never come true. When the hearing ended, Heidi stood to speak. Her voice was steady, but full of sorrow. She thanked the police officers who had worked tirelessly on her daughter's case. She said no sentence could bring Lisa back, but at least now he could never hurt anyone else. She spoke directly to those living in abusive relationships, telling them to leave before it is too late. She said if someone threatens to end your life, believe them. If they can say it, think it, or imagine it, they can do it. She urged others to make a safe plan to escape, to reach out for help, to understand that their lives are worth saving. Her words were powerful and heartbreaking. Every person in the courtroom could feel her pain. The prosecutor also spoke, saying that Lisa's final moments showed who she was. A mother thinking of her child. Her hand had been found resting on a book about pregnancy. Even in her last breath, she had been focused on the life growing inside her. Outside the courthouse, people gathered in quiet reflection. The case had left a permanent mark on the town, on the family's online page. Heidi later wrote that the sentence brought some resolution, though no true peace. She said they would donate all remaining funds to support local domestic violence programs, hoping Lisa's story might save someone else. As the video tribute played during the memorial service, a poem written by Lisa herself appeared on screen. It was something she had once shared online, long before her death. It read, "After a while you learn the quiet difference between holding a hand and chaining a soul. You learn that love does not mean leaning and that company does not mean safety. You learn that kisses are not promises and gifts are not guarantees. You begin to accept your losses with your head high and your eyes open. You learn to build your future on today because tomorrow is never certain. And you learn that even sunshine can burn if you get too much. So you grow your own garden and fill it with your own light, instead of waiting for someone else to bring you flowers. You learn that you are strong, that you can endure, and that you have worth. You learn and you learn. With every goodbye, you learn." Her words lingered like an echo of strength and heartbreak. The poem felt like a message from beyond, as if she had already understood what life could take away and what it could never destroy. And so Lisa Dodd and her unborn daughter, known only as Baby Bean, became symbols of a story too disturbing to make it to Netflix. A story not of fiction, but of love, trust, and the darkness that sometimes hides behind both.